I was a massive Tamiya fan in the 90s, and lockdown seemed a great time to treat myself to a new, old car, the Tamiya Hornet. And it felt right as well to film this 27-year return to radio control cars. So this is a look at just what it takes to build one from scratch, with a few beers down to boot. Chiefly the excellent Thornbridge Florida Vice, heartily recommend it, really nice summery drink. So the Tamiya Hornet, pretty decent build, not too tricky. You start off with the rear unit, it gets you building the diff up in the first instance. Now I've got a full ball bearing set here, really recommend getting that off the bat, just reduce friction down the unit, chuck those plastic bearings out and get them installed in the diff. It only costs about £10 or so it's not a bad investment. And the rear unit goes together really quickly. Here I've got a sport tune motor as well, so another upgrade I did, 540 cans still in the box, just to add a little bit more performance there as well. And that was it, that was the rear unit done. The chassis comes in one piece, there's no top deck or lower deck here, it's just one big bathtub unit that you strap that rear unit that you build to. The rear unit attaches in two places actually, so that it slides up and down in the bottom part, just to give it a bit of adjustability. And then you've got the damper element as well, so it kind of moves in two parts. The rear dampers are oil-filled ones, that's one benefit over the Grasshopper, if you've seen that. It's got oil-filled dampers at the rear, which aren't the most expensive units, but they're fairly decent and they do a good enough job. Once you've got all that in, then it's radio gear. Here I've got the servo going, goes strapped straight to the front, which then runs to the electronic speed controller and the receiver. So I put them vertically, I actually moved that and put them horizontal after this trial. It worked a little better with the wiring. The front end's not too tricky, simplistic unit. You've got the two front wishbones there and the arms. Once you've got those in place, it's just mounting them in the chassis, and that's it, the single wishbones. You get the simple front dampers, they're not oil-filled dampers at the front. You'll see here when I get them out, they've just got rubber bushes in there as the friction element, and they strap on, and that's flying to the mount at the top there. Now the wheels took such a long time, I can't even tell you. The two-piece units, and you're screwing together and then kind of jamming into the wheels, which was always a little bit tricky. What I've done here is actually I've just trimmed off any white excess plastic, just so they don't catch the rubber when you're putting them in or when it's running. It's worth doing, just a little bit of tidying up, and that's with all the plastic really, just making sure that there's no kind of sharp edges from the mould in there, or where you've cut it off the mould as well. So word of warning on the front wheels, they fouled a little bit, the screws did, on the chassis arm, so just want to watch that. I had to trim it down ever so slightly just to make it to rotate a little better, so just watch that when you're building it. But other than that, it's a nice rolling kit. What you'll see here is that I decided just to tidy the wires up. They're a little bit all over the shop, so just to make sure that they're not sprawling everywhere, sticking out the body or catching on anything. I've just put some cable ties in there. I've also rerouted the motor cable just through the middle of it. And that's it running. As a basic chassis, all good. Onto the body, onto the little driver. Now what you can see here is me just tidying up the body of the driver, just taking off all those mould lines. It's quite a noticeable part of it. It's a little bit more showy, so I wanted that to be a little bit more immaculate. So what I've done here is just a technique of just trimming off that excess. I've screwed the helmet together, and when that's together, just put where the two parts meet, just trimming that down and smoothing it off, because otherwise it'd show over the paint. Now this kit comes with a masking kit for the windows, really useful. You've got to cut it out yourself, it's not pre-cut, but it looks good and it does a really good job when it comes to the spraying, which will come in a moment. And when you're spraying, it's really worth remembering to just make sure there's no dust inside. I forgot, I put it out there, not that it kind of been sat upside down for ages, but I did notice a few little specks here and there in the inside, so worth doing. What I also recommend is getting some proper scissors. You can see here I've probably got 3 scissors on the go, and that first cut into the body was really tricky, just making a little space for you to work it out. Once you got in there though, it wasn't too tricky, and those little nail scissors worked the best out of all of them, just to gently trim it round. I've actually bought some decent body scissors for the next time. And then onto the decals. Now this took probably about an hour and a half, surprising amount of time. Again, not pre-cut, you've got to cut them out yourself, so yeah, spare a bit of time for that. Now they look a little bit, you're not quite sure what you're going to get out of it when you're cutting them, you know how it's going to lay up. The chassis stuff's actually really decent, the body stuff's really decent, they're good stickers, really well thought out. Now the body looks so great when I took that film off. The black paint scheme shining through, that glossy, fresh polycarbonate body looks superb. So pleased when I took that off. And then onto the stickers, and then just completing that 80s look, getting those stripes on. Now the technique I learned and sussed out from tutorials was just cutting a little bit of that backing sticker off, not taking the whole thing off, and just cut a little bit off, get it lined up, slide it on that remaining backing sticker, get it in a key place, line it up with the structural thing, then press down on the sticker and peel the rest of the backing sticker off, because it should be pretty much aligned then. And that worked really well, especially for these stripes, which were quite tricky, getting them lined up at the bottom of the chassis and then meeting the stripes at the top. They were just a little bit fiddly to sort out, so yeah, really good technique for that. But the rest went on really well. I'm really impressed by how they plan those out, and it's just little fiddly things from here, and little Z point stickers and RPM stickers and things like that. One thing I did with this as well, and you see, is that getting the wing screwed on to match up with the stripes, and then taking it off, it's in the way. In the manual it shows it with it on screwed on, and when you put the sticker on, it makes a real pain if you do that, because you can't get underneath it. So it's just lining it up to get those top stripes on and then taking that off. Really recommend that. But yeah, it's watching this, I'm so impressed just how it gets that character when you're slapping all those on. The off-road, the Hornet racing team, all those little things just look super impressive, and really brings it alive, and just, you know, evocative of the 80s when you saw these bashing round. So onto the painting. What I did first, all Tamiya paints, I've just chosen exactly the ones that it recommends in the guide. To begin with, flat white undercoat, just to give it something to tone on top of, so it's not just straight onto the plastic with the colour. And then beyond that, onto the semi-gloss black. You've got the flesh one as well, which is really good paint. You can see here, just getting into just granite, it's a good tone to it. The sky blue for the helmet. What a colour, great colour. Had to go on a few times, but really nice, glossy, and really bright colour. All the paints are super impressive, loads of pigment in them. Got to leave them to dry for a bit. You can't handle them too much, and I sussed little plastic things to jam in them just so I didn't handle them by the actual body themselves, which is always worth doing. And there you can see another coat of blue, just getting another layer on that just to get off kind of the stripes that come in. What I've done here is that I've got some old Citadel paints that an ex-Games Workshop like me still had some kicking around, and what I've done is just add a bit of dirt to the body, that white body, just make it look like it's been drying through dirt. So that's a shader paint, an old school kind of 10-year-old shader paint that I'd whacked on there, but it did a good job. It needed toning down a little bit. I did it like a watered down flat white over the top, just so it wasn't quite as intense, and then just brought it back again with a little bit more of that shader in places. Painted the guy's face with that as well, just to add some tones in and put some eyes in, so it worked a treat, absolute treat, just to bring it alive a little bit. And what's worth remembering is not to handle the paint too soon after you paint it. It feels dry, but it's still a little soft. I handled the helmet, so to speak, when I screwed it back on the body and left little fingerprint marks, so it's worth just leaving it a good while. I had to just give it another kind of tidy up after that. But there, just getting the last decals on his helmet, and then just getting some on the lights as well, so that those are on, screwing them in, and yeah, that's about the body.
sorted and done after a good old slog. A lot of decals, a lot of fettling, but it looks superb. Nothing left to strap it on, get the clips in, and it looks brilliant. So chuffed with that. What a model. It looks fantastic out of the box. It took a fair few hours to get this together as complete as I wanted it, but it was time well spent. But she didn't stay looking like this for too long. I said she was a knockabout car, and that is exactly what I've used her for since. I'm going to put together a video of the first run in the woods and how I managed to barrel roll her in about 5 seconds flat from being brand new, so I'll drop that at some point. If you're also interested, I'll drop the unboxing video in here. You can see a bit more detail on what comes with it and amongst all that sumptuous Tamiya packaging. But thanks for watching that, and catch you next time.